So we're shifting into paradigm shift. How are we going to change the trajectory of how much renewables we can put in the marketplace, in the world, to avert climate catastrophe? The first person we're going to have right now is we're going to have a speaker, Konrad Augustin, and we're going to follow that with a panel discussion with a bunch of luminaries in the industry, and I'm going to say that because I happen to be there. But introducing Konrad, he leads Eon's strategic co-investment group. Eon, of course, is one of the world's largest utilities, and he also has a dashing haircut. And I'm going to leave it with Konrad at this point to tell us a bit more about what he's up to. Thank you, Konrad.
Thanks. Thank you. Thanks for the introduction, Joel. And thank you also to Chip and Sally for the invitation to speak today at AREDAY. It's a great event. So my name is Konrad Augustin. As Joel already said, I'm working with the corporate VC arm of Eon Group. I'm heading the San Francisco office there. And I'd like to take the next couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about Eon, but also about the changing markets in which Eon is active right now, and how Eon has opted to adapt and act in those changed markets. So, first of all, a couple of facts and figures about Eon for those of you who can't really put the name anywhere. Eon is a large European utility. We're active in Europe, we're active in Russia with the gas business, and we're active in North America with 2.7 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity, mostly wind here in the US. And Eon currently has 58,000 employees worldwide and has last year had 112 billion euros of revenue. At the current exchange rate, that's around about $120 billion. And next to those core markets, we're also having joint ventures in Brazil and Turkey. So for a German utility, we're quite a big player in that respect. Right now, we're in the process of transforming Eon from a commodity provider to a global provider of specialized energy solutions. And we're active in 15 countries right now and servicing 35 million customers. Strangely enough, in the US, we don't have any end consumer contacts. So this is mainly Europe and Turkey with 9 million. Here in the US, as I said, we're only producing renewable energy and selling that off through PPAs. And the generating fleet of Eon right now is just south of 60 gigawatts, out of which 10.5 gigawatts is renewable energy, including large hydro. So you might think, why is Eon right now in the process of transforming itself? Because the old business model has been working for a couple of decades now, and it's been, working well. And the answer to that is because the markets are changing, and they're changing quite a bit. And I'd like to take a couple of minutes to tell you a little bit about two major developments in one of our home markets of Germany that just occurred in the last 10, 15 years. And number one is solar and wind being massively on the uprise. Since the first legislation in the mid-90s about the Renewable Energies Act of the German government, wind and PV has had a massive growth, and today we have over 1.5 million installations. That number, unfortunately, is a little bit, I think that's a typo. That's not 2012, end of 2014, that's supposed to mean. And the wind is a little bit stronger in the north of Germany. Solar PV is a little bit stronger in the south, where the sun is shining a little bit more. But in total, today, Germany has 39 gigawatts of installed PV capacity. And in addition to that, there's another 40 gigawatts of wind energy. So this is a massive change in the energy landscape in Germany. Today, around about 25% of the energy needed in Germany, one of a very high industrialized country, is coming out of renewable resources. On very sunny days, and when the wind also kicks in, this can go all the way up to 35% of the total energy need. The other big change in Germany is the nuclear phase-out. So in 2011, when Fukushima happened, the German voter had a very clear message to the government, and that message was, we want to get out of nuclear energy ASAP. So the phase-out plan that was originally planned until 2036 was pulled up to 2022, and not only that, but also 8 out of the 17 nuclear reactors in Germany were shut down in that same year. And those remaining 9 nuclear power plants are now being phased out over the course of the next 7 years. So in 2022, basically the whole business model around nuclear power plants is going to be completely off the table. So this change in the market is causing companies to adapt, because if you're not adapting and you're not acting on the change in the markets, you're not going to be around very much longer as a large company. Now, the next question an end consumer could be thinking, well, now that Eon is helping me to save energy with energy efficiency, why is Eon at the same time still selling me kilowatt hours from gas and coal and still nuclear power plants? And the answer to that question came last year around Thanksgiving, when our board decided and announced that Eon is going to be splitting itself up into Eon, focusing more on the downstream sector, servicing those 35 million customers with energy efficiency solutions, smart grid solutions, distributed energy and storage, and Uniper on the other side, focusing on all the upstream businesses. So Uniper is going to be spun off end of this year with 20,000 employees, and is going to be focusing on what they are doing best, is effectively and economically running those reliable, conventional generating assets, and Eon is going to be focusing on new business models. This split is happening right now, and as of 1st of January, Uniper is going to be a separate legal entity being traded at the German stock exchange market. So Eon and Future is going to have the best interest to get solutions to its customers, to keep customers from shifting to another energy provider, because most of our markets are deregulated. People can choose every day whether they're taking their energy from Eon or from some other player. And now, after the big picture, I'd like to take a couple of minutes and talk about the picture of how Eon within itself is tackling these changes that are going on right now. And for that, we formed a group called Technology and Innovation in 2012. And this group is, apart from doing private equity and venture capital investments through the Strategic Co-Investment Group, is also doing trend scouting. And here are some of the trends that we've been looking at. And I'd like to not go through all of them, but only take out 2 that had a tremendous impact on the market. And the first one is the thinking about sustainability. If 10 years ago you would have asked a large corporation or an end consumer if he would be willing to pay a premium for clean energy, he probably would have thought you're in the Green Party, or you're doing something crazy. Today, this mindset has changed tremendously, all the way that large corporations want to go 100% renewable, or consumers want to go renewable and are willing even to take a PV system on their rooftop, even though it might be more expensive than using the energy of the grid. The other big change is accelerated technology. Basically, everything we're looking at in the smart grid sector is focused or is based on 3G, 4G, 5G technology for communication. So getting the data out in the smart grid is one piece, but communicating it is a second problem. And also on the end consumer side, if someone has a smartphone, he's way more willing to actually go with PV or go with a battery or go with EV because he can interact with that technology. 10 years ago, when you were using cell phones opposed to smartphones, that interaction, that acceptance of new technology would have been way more difficult. So these two things have changed tremendously in the last 10 years, and this is why right now the change is happening, and not 10 years ago, and not in 10 years. Long story short, Eon is very much believing that a centralized energy generation or energy system is going to be shifting to an individualized solution system. We're going to see a lot more distributed generation. We're going to see a lot more flexibility through battery, through virtual power plants, and we're going to see a lot more customization. People will not only be able to see and decide from what utility they're getting the energy, they're also going to decide what kind of technology they want to have in their smart home, or what kind of integration with their EV they want to see in their smart home. Technology and innovation itself is set up like a network. So we have group management in Düsseldorf, Germany, right next to the company headquarters. And then we have what we call the Eon Innovation Centers in different regions in Europe. And every innovation center out of those 7 is focusing a specific topic. So energy storage, for instance, energy systems, energy intelligence, distribution. So these centers are working on innovation, but they're also helping us get the innovation from our portfolio companies into Eon markets through our regional units. So this network is working with us and towards us. And now I'd like to take my last couple of minutes that I have to tell you a little bit about strategic co-investments, the group that I'm working with. We are corporate VC. We're investing right now into 4 big areas, one being residential and commercial and industrial solutions and customer engagement tools. We want to get closer to our customers instead of just sending them monthly bills. And we believe that Eon could be the perfect partner if a company or if a customer wants a rooftop PV solution or wants a battery in his basement or is thinking about how he can integrate his EV. We're also looking into renewables, balance of systems. We're looking into smart grid technology and network. So Eon owns over 1 million kilometers of distribution network. So everything that helps us smarten that asset up and get more data out of it is helping to reduce costs and eventually is helping our customers too. And eventually we're also looking at distributed energy generation and energy storage. And the equation that we're working on is a pretty simple one. If a company has a product or a service that is working for a customer, 5 customers, 10 customers, and actually has a business model in his market, leveraging this added value with Eon and its 35 million customers is going to be resulting not only in a benefit for the startup in the form of added value and revenue, but it's also going to be helping Eon to differentiate itself against the competitors in our markets. What we need, however, for an investment is always a demonstration, a validation of the technology in our markets. So we need a pilot, we need a joint venture, we need some form of commercial collaboration. So we're way more a market development partner than we are a technology development partner. And before coming to an end, I'd like to take a minute for an example of how this could look like. We've invested in a company called Singevity. They're based in Oakland, California. And Singevity is a company like SolarCity or Vivint or Sunrun, bringing rooftop PV to people. However, they have developed a very intriguing software tool that makes it possible to design a PV system on a rooftop without ever being physically at that house. So only using flyover data, LiDAR data, and maps data. And this software tool, of course, can also be used in Europe and in other markets outside of the US. And we trialed them after our initial equity investment in the Netherlands. And that trial was so successful that we just last month kicked in pilots in Germany and UK, 2 of our main markets in Central Europe. So this is actually right now happening, and Singevity gets the European market unlocked through that. And Eon, on the other hand, is able to offer its customers now for the first time a very simplified way of getting rooftop onto their roofs, PV on their roofs, sorry. And this is my last slide. This is just our current portfolio. We've invested into 14 companies so far in 3 years. So we're aiming to run about 3 to 5 investments per year. This year, we're looking at another 2 to 3 companies that could be interesting. And our ticket size normally is 3 to 5 million euros. So we're very comfortable with a minority stake of 5 to 15%. So by no means we want to take a controlling stake in those startups. They can do what they do best. They don't need any support from a large European utility for that. And that's about it. Thank you very much for your time, for your attention, and I hope I could help get a little bit more color to the brand of Eon today. Okay.
Do you want to field some questions when we get on the panel?
Okay, great.
That's okay. All right, I want to congratulate Konrad on a fantastic presentation. And when we look at global utilities, Eon really is one of the most spectacular ones and one of the most thoughtful ones. They're ahead of the market, helping support the feed and tariff program. They help balance the system there. They're transformative in going ahead and repositioning their generating assets versus being customer focused. They're truly a leader, not only in Germany, but across the globe. And I've enjoyed working with them in the renewable development industry here in the United States. So again, fantastic presentation, Konrad.